Hi kids, I'm Miss Denise, and if you've noticed, I'm wearing a pink shirt. I'm the Prims leader on Wednesday nights, and I miss you all. I know you probably miss your leaders, and even more, you probably miss your friends. My book today is about Bright Stanley, and Stanley also really wants to see his friends. So let's start the story. There's 3 Grace kids who know this story. So, far below the waves, a little fish named Stanley lived with his school. They were the brightest, sparkliest fish of the deep, dark sea. One morning, Stanley woke up late. "Hello, it's me," he called to his friends, but the reef was strangely quiet. In Genesis chapter 1, day 5 of creation, God said, "Let the water teem, be filled with living creatures." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing according to its kind. So there's all kinds of things in the sea. But in this case, Stanley didn't see anyone. Suddenly, Stanley remembered that today was the day his school swam to cooler waters for the summer. "Jumpin' jellyfish," he groaned. He hurried to the meeting point as fast as his fins could carry him. But no one was there. He looked around and saw a bright light. They haven't gone too far. And he raced towards the glow. But it was only a lobster, counting coins. "Go away! Don't touch my treasure," the lobster growled, snapping his claws. "I'm looking for my friends," said Stanley. "Fish," the lobster grumbled. "Those others were in such a hurry to find someone, they upset my coins." "Others?" Stanley asked. "My friends?" "Join them then," said the lobster, and Stanley sped off. Ahead of him, Stanley saw a shimmer. He could just make out a bright, sparkly fish. One of his friends. "Hello, it's me," he called, and he swam faster. What's this? Clunk. Stanley crashed his head first into something hard. "Jumpin' jellyfish," he cried. It wasn't one of his friends at all, but his own reflection in a shiny pearl. Well, the psalmist writes in 62:5, verse 5, "My hope comes from him, from God." And right about now, Stanley needed a little bit more hope. Stanley rubbed his bumped nose, feeling a little dazed. He didn't notice the dark shape coming up behind him. God made great creatures in the sea as well. When he turned around, Stanley found himself staring straight into the mouth of a huge shark. The psalmist writes in Psalm 31, verse 2, "Turn your ear to me, quickly to my rescue. Come quickly." Stanley needed rescuing. "Ah!" Stanley shrieked over coral and under the weeds. He sped with the shark snapping at his tail. Finally, Stanley saw a small hole in the rock below. He dived down inside to just miss being gobbled up. The Lord has sent a rescue, a place to hide. Deep within the cave, Stanley shivered and shook. He felt sad and lonely. He was beginning to think he'd never see his friends again. Remember Jonah when he was swallowed by the big fish? He also was lonely. And he wrote in Jonah verse 2, "In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me." Stanley is really just calling to the Lord right now. "Well, I can't stay here forever," he said at last. The psalmist writes in 62 verse 5, "My hope comes from the Lord." And Stanley was feeling hope. He put his head out of the cave to see if the shark had left. "Jumpin' jellyfish," he squealed. The sea was golden orange, glowing and glittering. It was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen, because there in front of him were his friends. "Hello, it's me," he called. "Stanley," his friends cheered. "Where have you been? We've been looking all over for you." Stanley told them his adventures as they swam off in one bright, sparkly, happy school. Again, the psalmist writes in Psalm 116, "I love the Lord, for he has heard my voice." He has ears to hear, he delivers us from trouble, and he hears our voice, and our hope comes from him. Let's end with a prayer. Dear God, thank you so much that you help us every day, that you are helping us do well at home. Help us to be kind to those in our house, to help when we can, and beyond all that, dear God, I pray that we will be able to be with our friends very soon. In Jesus' name.